Hello everybody, this is Cameron Snow, and in this video we're going to be continuing with our geological risking for exploration, and we're going to talk about exploration portfolios and maybe how you want to think about those, with respect to larger companies and smaller companies and why they're important. So let's get started here. Um, so just a brief reminder, what is an exploration portfolio? Well, quite simply, it's just a collection of exploration opportunities. By this point, you should have a basic understanding of how we do risking and volumes for a well, and then we repeat that for each of the opportunities in our portfolio, and we roll those all together, and that is our portfolio of opportunities. Um, Now, with that said, when we think about how we want to evaluate a portfolio, um, you know, most companies strive to build an exploration portfolio with diverse opportunities in there. They try to, make this comprehensive. Um, and we are going to look at, some of the reasons why. So, it's important to have a portfolio of opportunities because you may have to drill several prospects before you have a success. Um, let's say you've got 5 wells and each of them have a 30% chance of success. That means you might only expect to have one or two successes out of that collection of wells that you've drilled. And oftentimes, you need to have multiple successes in order to build out your development portfolio that's going to start leading to the cash flows that you need to build a sustainable company. Um, so, that's one of the reasons why you need to build a portfolio of exploration opportunities. Also, having that portfolio of opportunities allows you to balance risk versus reward. Um, if you've only got one opportunity and, that's it. But if you have a portfolio of opportunities, you're able to think about, all right, what's the risk that I'm taking versus what's the potential upside? The other thing that it allows you to do is it allows you to balance risk across different types of plays or basins. So, this could either be, you know, uh, whether or not you are looking at, whether or not you want to drill oil versus gas plays, whether or not you want to drill in basins in one geography or another, or balancing risk across, is it something as simple and fundamental as sands versus carbonates? So, there's a number of ways that you may want to try to balance your risk from a technical perspective as well as from a business perspective. Um, and then from the business perspective, it's very important to build a portfolio because this helps us quantify the value of our undrilled and or underexplored acreage. Um, when you're doing acquisitions, it's very easy to focus on, what is producing, what's the infrastructure that's there, what's the cash flow. But for many companies, especially, excuse me, small international players, um, a majority of the value in the company lies in the undrilled and underexplored acreage. So it is critical that you build up that portfolio of exploration opportunities so you can communicate that value to potential farminees or acquirers. Now, exploration portfolios come in all different shapes and sizes. Um, And, when you think about big companies and how they handle exploration, what you'll see is that they often have, and this is just due to the fact that they have, you know, large resource bases that they can draw from, large amount of financial power. They're able to have, you know, an exploration portfolio that, is comprised of multiple basins across multiple countries. They'll have both, maybe some conventional and less conventional or unconventional plays available to them. Um, Maybe they will be looking at both mature basins and frontier basins. So they can have a very broad portfolio of opportunities. With small companies, you know, it's about pragmatism instead of desire building the perfect portfolio. And because of this, if you're a small junior explorer, as they're often called, um, your exploration portfolio will often be limited to a single geography, a single basin, focused on one type of play. And depending on maybe what your founding thesis is, this will either be focused on a mature basin where you think there's some offset exploration capabilities, or a frontier basin, but maybe not both. Um, and so this leads to some interesting dynamics within a portfolio. And so I want to talk about some of those that I've seen before in my experience. So when you're looking at a small company and its exploration portfolio, what I've seen many times is that they have very focused portfolios that have concentrated risk. Um, and that's often just due to the fact that their entire exploration portfolio is inside of one basin, one area, one concession. Uh, and so when you're thinking about um, this portfolio, it's important to understand if there are risks that are common to every prospect. So this comes back to some of the things that we've previously discussed in this series, which is, is there a particular hydrocarbon system component that is quite risky across all of the prospects they have? Maybe it's source rock presence or maturity, um, or maybe it's something like reservoir presence. You know, this is something that it's critical to understand when you're evaluating a portfolio. Another thing to understand is small companies often have a very small staff. I've worked for companies where I've been the only subsurface interpreter, and I've looked at, and done peer reviews for companies where there is a single interpreter, or maybe just one or two people. Um, and the question that you need to look at in that case is, does their prior experience or does their expertise lead them to focus on just a few issues while omitting others? Does it lead them to some type of systematic bias? And I've seen this before where, you have a company that hires a very talented geophysicist. The geophysicist puts all the upfront focus on acquiring new seismic, reprocessing seismic, and interpreting that at the exclusion of other hydrocarbon system components. I've seen this with geochemists, where they focus on, source rock presence and maturity above everything else. Um, and that is because that's their expertise. And petrophysicists are guilty of this on the reservoir quality side and whatnot. So it's important to understand if bias could have originated due to a single interpreter. Um, the other question is, is data acquisition the key path to de-risking and clarifying? For example, is the lack of modern seismic bottleneck to progress? Um, so, that is that's a question that's worth asking when you're looking at a portfolio within a small company. Is there something that we can do on the data acquisition side that will allow us to have a lot more clarity and a lot better understanding of the risk of all of our prospects? So, maybe we go out and acquire more 2D seismic. Um, and then the last thing I'll say about portfolios in small companies is often because that one asset is all they have, and they have years to work on it. Um, they often develop a portfolio that's got, you know, dozens or maybe even hundreds of leads, from this one concession. And what often happens is you have, the top three, four, five, 10 prospects and leads that are, quite legitimate and supported by data. And then you have a very long tail of dozens and dozens of prospects that are maybe just supported by a single seismic line. It's just a bump on a single seismic line, or a high going into a fault on a single seismic line. And, you know, although these may be able to be evolved into something that's drillable, it's something to keep in mind, because I often see, some of these small companies, report that they have 50 exploration prospects with, you know, up to 10 billion barrels of oil in place. And what's really happened there is that they have, taken every single hint of a lead and they have put it into a portfolio. Um, and they know it's high risk, but they're intentionally not communicating that risk over. Um, and so that's something to look out for when you're evaluating assets at a smaller uh, portfolio. Now, in big companies, we see a different dynamic. They often have quite large portfolios. And in a quite large portfolio, it can often be very difficult to understand what's going on. And in these cases, I believe that is when having consistency is key, and it's consistency along multiple dimensions. First of all, you need a consistent classification of the exploration type. Is this like infill and offset exploration in mature basins, to step outs to frontier drilling? First of all, we need to classify which of those we're looking at, because they're all going to have different risk reward profiles. So it's important to understand that. Um, Second is, the consistency in our risking that's based on data availability and confidence. And this is where using a risking framework will come in. There is a difference between a prospect that has a low chance of success based on, say, for example, sparse 2D data with lots of unknowns, and a low chance of success on 3D seismic data and lots of offset dry holes. One of those you can potentially de-risk. The one that has sparse data, you can go acquire more data. The one that has dense data and offset dry holes, well, there's nothing you can do about those dry holes. They are they are there. And so, you know, it's important to understand the difference between those. What's driving my uncertainty? What's driving my low P sub G? Is it being driven by low data density, or is it being driven by, you know, uh, some condemning data in some cases? Um, and this is what plays into using the risking frameworks that we have talked about. So you can use that framework, um, to ensure consistency among this, and then you can combine that with the classification of exploration type to give yourself a more nuanced view. Um, and then, you know, the other thing within large companies is you need to understand the timing, the scale, and the business case. Um, and a lot of times, some explorationists may say, that's above my pay grade." Well, at some point you do need to think about the business case, and within your exploration portfolio, you need to understand, which prospects are drill ready, which are the ones that you know, if we decided to go in, we feel comfortable with our understanding right now. Um, you know, in which prospects, if we drill this, which ones are related to each other? If I drill this prospect, will it unlock others? That may give you a good business case for saying, hey, I'm going to drill this riskier well because if I drill it, it may help me unlock several other prospects and allow me to allocate more capital to this part of the portfolio, or it may condemn several prospects. So, by drilling one well, it may tell you, all right, I need to pull out of this area, I need to pull out of this play and stop allocating capital there. Um, and also there may be strategic reasons to drill one play versus another. Maybe you are, um, you know, running low on, near field tiebacks, and you need to drill some of these lower risk, lower reward exploration wells that maybe exist in one of your mature basin plays versus drilling more frontier wells. Like if you've been successful and you have a lot of capital projects that now need to be executed on to develop previous exploration successes, um, that may tell you, all right, it's time to put the brakes on drilling for some of these really large ones, that where all the cash flow and production is 10 years out. Let's focus on some of the ones where if it's a success, we can put it on production next year. And so that's some of the business strategy that needs to be considered when evaluating your exploration portfolio. Once again, underscoring the importance of having an exploration portfolio, having consistency, having an exploration database. Um, and once again, the tooling necessary for this is available out there commercially. Encourage you all to check out georiskx.com. Thank you.